What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new video here on my YouTube channel. And for those of you that are new around here and don't know who I am, my name's Aaron. I create travel, photography and videography based content here on YouTube. So if that is something that will interest you, be sure to subscribe to the channel. But as you can tell by the title, today I'm going to be giving you my top tips for first time travelers based on my travel experiences in the past couple of years. So if you do find this video useful at any point, be sure to let me know by leaving a like. Put any comments or questions or some of your first time travel tips down in the comments section, and be sure to check out the linked playlist on screen right now, which is some more travel related content. But let's just jump straight into my top tips for first time travelers. Okay, so the tips that I'm going to give in this video don't necessarily just relate to solo travelers. It can relate to people who are even traveling in a group, because if it is your first trip, it doesn't matter whether you're doing it solo or with people, you are still traveling for the first time. And I've got some tips that I'm going to share with you. So the first one is to plan your destination or destinations if you're doing a larger trip. And the best way to do that for first time travelers is to keep it short and keep it close to home. Now, the reason that you want to keep it short is you may not actually like traveling. You might not get the bug for it when you first get out there. You might get homesick. You've never done this before. So make sure you keep it relatively short and obviously keep it close to home. You don't want to go on the other side of the world to realize within a week you're not comfortable and you don't like it and you want to come home. Keep it close to where you live. So for me, my first major trip on my own or with people was around Europe. I done interrailing, and I'm from the UK, so it's obviously close to home. So if I didn't like it or I needed to come home for whatever reason, I could have very easily done so. And I kept the trip to about 3 weeks. So I was able to go and enjoy the trip and obviously experience a lot of things, but it wasn't too long to the point where I was starting to feel a bit on edge about things because it was my first trip. So do plan your destinations. And two other things you want to consider when you are planning your destination is keeping it relatively safe and easy to get around. Now, if you listen to the media, nowhere is safe in this world, but obviously we know that there are places and pretty much everywhere in the world where you can go and travel, enjoy yourself, and it is considered safe. And what I mean by easy to travel around, make it somewhere that's not very complicated to get from A to B. Somewhere like Southeast Asia is great for first time travelers, obviously because of all the different places that you can go and visit. But sometimes traveling around Southeast Asia doesn't seem like the most simple process. Whereas if you go to somewhere like Europe, whilst it's a bit more expensive than the rest of the world, the train system, which is interrailing, is very simple. You literally get on one train and go straight to another. And there's obviously budget airlines which do flights from around £20 or $20 to pretty much everywhere in Europe. So it's very easy and very handy to do, very accessible and very affordable. So bear that in mind when you are planning your first trip abroad. And my next tip is to do your research, and I've actually done a whole video on this, which is 5 things you must do before you travel. And I basically just look at getting visas, checking your passports in date, considering time differences, looking at vaccinations that you might need to get, phone providers, and so on. So go and check out that video. It will be linked on screen right now. But doing your research prior to going on a trip is vital. If you go on your first trip and you have no idea of the country or anything about the country or the place that you're going to, how you can transport around, you're going to be in for quite a tough time, and you'll probably end up spending a lot of your time doing your research while you're there. So it's much better to do it before you go, and then you're very knowledgeable on your trip and you can just get on with things as soon as you get there. Okay, my next tip is something that I have mentioned in the video linked on screen, but I'm going to briefly touch on it now, and it is to contact your bank and phone provider before leaving, and they both have similar reasons. You want to contact your phone provider so they don't put any blocks on your account if they do see that you're traveling abroad, and obviously you just want to check what the phone provider situation is, if they're going to charge you extra money, or if you're actually just covered for a free part of your deal when you travel to certain countries. And then for your bank, they will block your bank account and they will, cancel your card if they see that your card's being used abroad, because they will think it's stolen if you haven't told them. So make sure you do tell them to prevent any blocks on your account or your cards getting cancelled, because if they do cancel your cards when you're abroad, you're absolutely snookered, because you're not going to get your new card until you return home. So make sure you contact both of them. Now, a big thing that I see first time travelers do, and I was quite guilty of it myself, I'm not going to lie, was overpacking. Now the general rule in terms of making sure that you don't overpack is to lay everything out on the bed or on the floor that you're planning on taking and cut it in half. And I know it will seem difficult at first, especially if you're going on a trip which is 3-4 weeks or maybe even a couple of months. You're going to think, how am I going to last with all of that stuff? Well, for little of that stuff for such a long amount of time. Well, you can do laundry in pretty much every place you're going, and trust me, it will save your back, it will save your shoulders, it will save your legs from carrying around the extra weight. Trust me on this one, do not overpack, as you will regret it the second you get there, and there's nothing you can really do about it then, because you're not going to start throwing clothes away for free. You'd rather just leave them at home knowing they're here and you've gone and you've got a much lighter bag and you've got enough things, to be honest, to last you for your trip. Now, tip number 5 is something I've never actually done, but I do really need to do it. And as I said for the last one, I'm guilty of not doing this, but learn some keywords in the language that's spoken in the country that you're traveling to. So if you're going to France, learn some of the keywords. And by that, I just mean learn how to say hello, thank you, goodbye, yes, no, stuff like that. Just some very, very basic keywords that you may need to use from day to day, as in some places locals do not understand your language or understand English, and you may just need to give a very, very simple answer just to get them to go away, or just to get their attention, or just to put your point across. So learn some very, very basic keywords, which will take you no more than 10 minutes. And obviously, if you just learn them a couple of times a day, or maybe just over a couple of weeks, you will end up just remembering them, to be honest, and they will come in very, very handy for your trip. Okay, tip number 6 is actually quite important, and it's regarding safety. And there's 2 main parts to this. It's do your research and just use some common sense. So do your research on the areas that are considered not safe. Now, pretty much every country in the world has somewhere that's considered not safe. And to be honest, it's probably perfectly fine, but some people have had bad experiences there, or it's just considered less safer than the other places. But just make sure you're aware of these areas. And then in terms of using your common sense, you wouldn't walk down an alley late at night in your home city, so why would you do it on the other side of the world? It's actually even more less safe because you don't actually know that area like the back of your hand, like you would in your home city. So just apply some common sense to those situations to keep yourself safe. And another big tip is, don't act lost, even if you are. Don't start getting a map out and trying to look around as to where you're going, or getting a map out on your mobile phone and walking around, or even on the phone telling people you're lost, because then you become a target. People may try and scam you, people may try and attack you. It's highly unlikely, but just do not act like you're lost. Just try and get to the local cafe and then figure your way out from there. It saves you a lot of hassle and makes you a lot more safer. Now, another big tip that's often overlooked is transport and doing your research on transport. Transport across the world does vary. In Europe, there's the train network, which I've mentioned, interrailing, which is very extensive and very, very easy to get around. Whereas in Southeast Asia, to get to somewhere, you may need to get a bus, then a boat, then a taxi, then another bus, then a boat and a flight or something like that. There's a lot of different travel things that you do need to consider. So do your research on the local transportation within the city that you're in whilst you're there. So maybe when you first arrive, just check what the local transport system is like, whether you need to get taxis, whether certain taxi companies aren't safe, whether you need to get certain trains. Do the research on that. But before you actually travel, check on a wider scale. So if you're going to be traveling around Europe, check how the travel works. If you're going to be traveling around Southeast Asia, check how you can get around the larger parts of Southeast Asia, mainly from country to country. But the key thing is to do your research, whether it be whilst you're there or before you go. You do need to research transport, because that's basically how you're going to get around. And if you end up staying in the one place, your trip isn't going to be that much fun, and you'll probably get bored quite soon. And the final thing is to make sure you enjoy your trip, and that is done by researching what you can do in each place, whether it be free things to do or whether you want to splash the cash and go on some mad adventures. It doesn't matter, just make sure you research and know what you're going to do roughly in a city. Obviously, it all depends on what you want to do, so don't just listen to other people, but make your own plan, make your own activities that you want to do, and obviously just use them as a rough guide. You don't have to literally plan day by day what you're going to do at exactly what time, but have a rough idea of what you want to do when you're in a certain place. And obviously, to extend on that, research the local culture. Obviously, certain things are seen offensive in certain countries that you wouldn't actually consider offensive in your own country, so just make sure you're aware of the local culture within certain countries in the world, so you're not offending anyone, because if you do offend the locals, it's not a good situation to be in. So just make sure you do your research thoroughly on places to do, things to see, and obviously what you need to do to respect the local culture. But that is all for this video. If you did find it useful, be sure to let me know by leaving a like. Put any comments or questions or your tips for first time traveling down below in the comment section, or any travel stories that you may have from your first time traveling experience. As I said at the start of the video as well, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you do like travel related content like this one, and go and check out all the linked videos and playlists that come up on the screen during the video. But thank you all for watching, guys. Till next time, goodbye.